right, well, we'll start this evening's meeting. This is a meeting of the Rules Committee of the Representative Town Meeting. And first item is approval of the September 9 minutes. If I can have a motion for those, please. Thank you.
So moved.
It's so nice to see them from Mr. Swenson. It's very nice to have a second.
Second.
I have a second, all right, comments, questions?
My comment was that it really hurts me to support the secretary, but I thought he replicated what we said that night very well.
Well, they had to be fixed. There was a
Well, I'm
swapped.
The second version I thought was very good.
Our versions as we go
Yes,
along.
Mr. Davis kept you honest
Better
on
and
that.
better.
So,
But nicely done.
Thank you, sir. And thank you for Mr. Davis pointing out
Okay,
that.
so, no comments, then? All in favor of approving the minutes? Okay. Opposed? Abstentions? One abstention. Harry wasn't here.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful. The minutes stand approved. I want to welcome for, I guess it's going to be, well, we hope it's for many meetings, Harry, but Joanne Hennessy's replacement from District 5 on the Rules Committee, Harry McLaughlin. So welcome, Harry.
Welcome, Harry.
Thank
Good
you.
to have you here.
I know a few of you from committees and other things.
For other things, right?
And other things.
This and that.
Yeah.
Well,
The other things are probably more interesting.
yeah.
ABC is.
Okay, just going through pending items and assigning committees where necessary. The $451,000 state grant and that we assigned, we have not assigned that anybody for that yet. So, what, PH&S and F&B?
Yeah, I spoke to Mac earlier this weekend. I motion that they're primary and F&B secondary.
There we go. Second. All in favor? Good, unanimous.
So that was
Yep. Authorization for an increase of $75,000 on the resolution for the $250,000 purchase and installation of generator at Town Hall. We assigned committees for that.
Who do we have on that? Just double check.
Let me,
They already did that, didn't they?
Yeah,
one second, I'll tell you. Because it's in our beautiful minutes that we just approved. All right.
Public Works
75.
primary,
Public Works, maybe?
Yeah,
F&B secondary.
yeah.
Sure.
75 is, no, it was Park and Rec primary, it says.
Not that one.
For the
huh?
generator.
Not the generator.
Oh, and the
Generator on
I'm
it.
sorry.
that was Public Works, wasn't it?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Yes,
Public
Public
Works.
Works and then
Public
F&B.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Already
And then, so that one's ready to go. Increase of fines for false alarms. I think that's rolling, right, Friday?
We have three. PHS primary, TGS&A, F&B secondary.
Yep.
So if, I'll make a motion on that.
We're done, we already did that.
Good.
Yeah, that's just making sure that everybody's ready to go.
Yeah.
Okay?
Do you want to,
He was talking about it now, or talking
Yeah.
about it?
Yeah, I mean, if, is there any questions? Or?
I got a little pack.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Oh, yeah.
We haven't had a packet from you since
Well, I haven't been
June.
without a packet.
So Frank, you'll send a copy of that.
Sure. You have a packet.
Thank
It
you.
starts off with a note, which would be, if we don't make any changes this evening, this note would go as part of a warning, so that your members of the RTM would have a little background on when this started and what this is all about. Essentially, it says it was referred to us by the Board of Selectmen, and that we have a resolution that goes, right now, the fines are $100 per false alarm. The notion is to move it to $150 for the second alarm within a year, and then $250 for the third alarm within a year of the prior one. Town council has advised us that $250 is the maximum that we can legitimately charge. So, the number of false alarms has gone up dramatically. On fire alarms, it was 181 and 2 years ago. That's now 309. Police alarms, so far this year, there have been 343 false alarms out of 100 being generated by 115 separate addresses. Hidden in this is the fact that there's one commercial establishment in town that has generated 12 alarms, 12 false police security alarms. And it's time to kind of tighten things up on that a little bit.
I do want to make a comment because Bob Bush and I were talking about how they do this. So if you go to Goodwives Shopping Center, the alarm location is the assessed location. So even though there may be 10 stores there, it could be 10 different storms, but it's at the same address. And so it looks as potentially as if there were 10, but it doesn't necessarily mean it was 10 at a single store.
So, second page is the whereases. And the third page is actually what needs to change in the ordinance to get those proper words in. Page 4 is the whereases that have to do with the fine schedule. As you recall, fines are not hard-coded into the fees and fines are not hard-coded into the ordinances anymore, but they're shoved back in Appendix D. So what is going on page 4 and 5 is a change to the table which contains this. And then I need some advice. Pages 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 are the actual false alarm code that is being modified. So you see, there's no changes on page 6 and 7.
Right.
But then at the bottom of 8, this is where the change comes in. No changes on 9 or 10.
You put a line down there and
And then,
underlines where.
yeah, then on 11 you have this table again. So with your permission, I don't think this needs to go out in the warning package. If someone's interested in section 5 of the code, they can look it up.
Can be posted.
On the other hand, if you feel that the average member of the RTM would feel upset that they only see the little schedule, then we could ask Donna to put what you have in front of you, in front of the RTM via the warning. That's your sentiment. We all could go either way, but I just don't know what you all would think would be better.
If it's posted online, it seems redundant to print it and send it out. Yeah,
And the information's in the summary on page 5.
yeah, the final, the kids,
Right.
these are.
Everything in those two
So
sentences
one
that
could
are on
have
page
a,
5.
you know, a few-
Yeah, what Donna would include is what you have as page 1.
Mhm,
That would go along with the warning.
sure, that seems sufficient in my mind.
I might come up with an alternative. And in fact, we were talking about something similar to this earlier today. I agree that in the package, the cover page with the resolution is great. But I think it might be good if Donna might distribute the full amount of this full page electronically to people. Because that was part of the, when Mac and I were talking about things, there was a comment that not all of the executive summaries were sent in the package, even though we in rules saw it. And so the question is what can we move electronically to the members? And I understand there's about 2 or 3 people who do not have access to email, but at least for the vast majority we do.
Well, I think that's a good not compromise, but that's a good workaround, so that, to repeat it back, Donna would include this thing that's called Summary for RTM. And then, we would ask her to please in her email package to include the ordinance, the way it is, with the redlining on it. But, as a matter of fact, it might even come out red. Yeah, this is copying, it came out black. And, in the electronic version, it might come out red. So with that,
All right.
said, I would submit this to rules to include on the agenda.
Okay.
Frank, nice.
Good. Nice job, Frank, as usual.
Yeah.
With the typo that Harry's found.
Board of Selectmen.
Oh, that's
Well,
your job.
yeah, on the top of the table here, page 11, Harry found something. Selectmen,
Spell checker.
Do we have to move this?
pardon?
Do we have to move this?
What I'll do is go through these and then we'll move to set the
Okay.
agenda.
At the end, okay. Nice, Frank, thank you.
Okay,
Quick turnaround.
and thank you for that, Harry, a magnificent
Just
contribution
noticed
here.
looking, I had to double check it, but it was somewhere here, it said Board of Selectmen, I said, it must be it.
Well, we're reducing them from 5 to
Okay, so next item is project updates. Jeremy has got representatives for the Genovese and Federal Realty, and then he said that Palmer's did not want to go on record before the RTM about where they are at the moment, but Jeremy said that he would be able at least to say what he's seen so far, so he could provide a little bit on Palmer's, although.
Okay, so I'm just gonna
Okay.
confirm, because I had asked about this a month ago when you and I talked. So, Greg Palmer or brother are not going to come, but Jeremy will give us an update.
Right.
Okay.
And then I believe that he's got, I thought he did have Genovese set up to come, one of them.
No, I'm talking about the Palmers. I know District
Oh,
1 and
Palmer's, yeah, no,
District-
there'd be nobody
right.
from Palmer's, right?
District 1, but you're saying that Jeremy will give kind of an update on what he knows as of now?
That's correct.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Because District 1 and District 5, which border Norotan Heights, right, Mark?
Yes, ma'am.
It's empty, and it's been empty for a while, and people are really starting to ask, so we'd love an update, that's good.
Yes, no,
Thank
he
you.
said he would do that.
While we're doing that, we can provide a public service announcement that the post office hasn't disappeared. It is in a van in the bottom part of Palmer's. It used to be where the physical therapy group is, but it is open, and I have already told 10 different people that, no, there's a van there, go there.
So noted, and thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that trailer, I think, is a shrub.
We'll take care of that, Mark. Okay. Lori Bora contacted us, she wants to talk about Pear Tree Point Beach, because there's just a lot of people talking about it these days, so she's gonna step up and just give a briefing on what's going on, where it stands now.
Can I?
Yes, yeah.
Because I've actually been wanting to get in touch with you. And Adele and I have had several conversations. One of the things that I would like to hear, and I think that the Park and Rec Commission has it, but I'd like to start from the top. So, you know, we did the survey, there's been discussions in the Park and Rec Commission, but here's how we view our beaches, because we're gonna have another beach resolution coming. Here's the amenities that we like to see at beaches without a definition necessarily of what it is, because obviously one having 7 acres and the other 22, you can't have racquetball courts at Pear Tree Beach. But then, here's the personalities of the beaches, because even though they're all family oriented, what I've heard, and I don't think it's gonna change much, is that, you know, everybody talks about that, you know, Pear Tree's the quieter beach, you know, and part of it is because it doesn't have all the other activities that are going on. And Weed Beach is a more developed beach. But I think that type of vision, which I think Park and Rec actually has, and starting from there and going down, then makes a lot more sense when, you know, we're talking about the gift that we're getting over at Weed Beach. It makes a lot more sense of some of the discussions that are going on, you know, Pear Tree, the fact that we're gonna probably have to dredge, we have to redo the ramp and other things like that. Because it starts up here, and then these things are just filling in, and, you know, and go from there. So that's actually the conversation, I know Dale said that I wanted to, that's what I'd love for you to start with if you could, because I think Park and Rec has it. It'd just be nice to hear it articulated, because then it's sort of like, oh, this slots in here.
Thanks, Jack. Yeah. Yes, Rose.
In the discussion, can you highlight points where the public has been involved and where they are expected to be involved going forward?
Sure.
Because that was, I know in the past on other things, not your stuff, you know, it was like, well, we didn't know, blah, 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 blah. I think making sure that that's out there would be helpful for everybody involved. And I know you've had a lot of involvement with the public already.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And if you could do what projected timetable of what are the benchmarks that you've got to hit, so you're going to FEMA now to get questions on FEMA, and you're at zoning board of appeals, what are the steps and the timetable that people can expect that will lead up to RTM assignment to committees, and there's assigned to committees and RTM both of what people, are we looking at a 6-month window, or are we looking at something that's gonna come to fruition in the next 2 months?
No.
I'm sure the building. I watched the building.
That was heart attack, I
I
think.
watched the building, I watched the building committee, I mean, I know that's not the next two, but the FEMA of what are the questions that you still don't have, you get more answers every meeting, what are the things you're still looking for answers to?
And I think it would be really helpful to have that to have an update. I think it would be really great.
Perhaps they sent out FAQs today, which I thought was very helpful. So I don't know if we want to include that in the attachment that goes out with the agenda. You guys can decide if that works or not, or do attachments only go with something that we're voting on?
Well,
That went to all the.
I need to look and see, because I want to see the distribution of that thing that went out today. I don't know how many people.
Just like.
What went out?
Okay.
Fair Tree Point, there was a,
First of all, for paddle courts, I didn't see for, is it a letter or is it?
It's an FAQ, I'll show it to you.
Is it a letter?
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
You have to press on the thing.
Yes, yeah.
You might be getting ahead of ourselves here, but I think,
Yes.
yeah, but it might be useful to pass it out to the RTMs and the fact sheet that they prepared. It'll go along with
Yeah.
what you have to say, and that would be appropriate.
And if it goes out in
And
advance.
if you, anybody that want, you know, they'd be happy to send it to all of us, I'm quite certain.
Thank you. Keep it sent to me.
Well, one of the other things, because, okay, I know you know, but Martha Banks happens to be on F&B, you probably know that as well. And she gave a very nice update at our last meeting, and Kate was also there. And one of the things we kept on stressing, and this is part of why the strategy and other thing helps, is that stop asking what it costs. Until people have gotten all the approvals, figured out what it is, determined how it fits into the overall strategy for what it is, that's when we'll first start to deal with costs. So, I mean, we stressed that on several times during our budget, and I think that, I don't wanna speak for John, but John Zabrowski said that if it makes sense, that's what we're gonna spend, and he also likes to get things done right
Yes,
the first time.
yes.
Not that we're going back 4 times for it. So this is more of, let's get conceptually what everything's there, have the building committee and Park and Rec come to that determination. Kate said that she most probably will have pretty close to a public works costing on it as she can come. You know, it's not the same size and we don't know what the numbers are. So, but when it comes to Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance and the RTM, those costs will be pretty buttoned up. And so that's the key. We had to even mention to several of our people more than once. I don't care about what the costs are. You know.
Thank you, will you say that publicly?
Yes, I just did. I don't care what the cost is. And the other thing that we reminded people was, we cannot modify what comes out of that building committee and Park and Rec. If you don't like something and it bugs you a lot, then you vote no. If it doesn't bug you enough to do that, then you vote yes. Then you look at the cost and you figure out whether or not those costs are something you believe you do. But this is an up and down vote, not a vote where we can come back and say, I think the boat ramp should be at a slightly different angle.
Well, one of the glories about the way these things are put together is there's a lot of opportunity because of the time involved and the number of meetings involved. There's a lot of opportunity for people to step up so that you don't actually have to worry about a comment about the ramp angle. That's already been discussed somewhere.
Yeah,
I know, but I mean, no, it's a good example, Jack. You know, what you said is, you know, somebody comes up with, most of this detail is pretty well covered, so that people just, it's easier to do an up and down vote.
Well, I will though, since I know the boat ramp, about 3 years ago, we were talking about the fees associated with the boat ramp, if you remember. And I asked Kate when the last time we increased them, and based upon the look, I have a feeling that the last time we increased them was when the Vikings landed in Darien.
No, it wasn't that far back. I can remember.
No, I
But
would have remembered that.
It should be something that should be discussed, because there's a philosophy that users should partially pay for these things. But looking at it
But we should
over,
provide them with a workable boat.
right, but looking at it over a 20-year period, regardless of what the Board of Finance bonds it for, because it does have an extended life and you're not gonna pay for it all at once, or we'll have nobody watching
I think it's,
Maybe you need a smaller boat.
okay, folks,
I've kind
There you go.
we love the beaches, and speaking of which, now we have acceptance of a gift of up to $1.5 million from the Darien Athletic Foundation and the Darien Foundation for the creation of Wheat Beach Meadows. Kate got this to me the last minute, but I went ahead and changed and put it in on the agenda. So we have to assign committees for that. Park and Rec and F&B?
Yeah, Park and Rec primary.
Yeah. Okay. So, can I have a motion on that?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
I'll second that.
All right. All set, Mike?
Yes.
All in favor? Okay, unanimous. Great. Okay, so,
Can I ask a question
Yes, sir.
again? Is there any financials associated with that? Because if F&B is looking that we're getting 1.5 million, that's really nice, but what does that 1.5 represent? Have they provided?
It's not to, it's gonna be
Not
written as
to
not
exceed,
to
yeah.
exceed 1.5, because we're
Up
still
to.
dealing with the contractor.
Do we have any idea of what the ongoing costs are going to be associated?
I mean, maintenance.
Yeah, yeah. afterwards.
Not exactly.
Is there anything that requires FEMA compliance, you know, so that if it gets washed out?
No,
Okay.
there's no buildings.
Yeah, I just didn't know because I'm assuming that it's gonna be some path also on there, so, okay.
If I can just make sure I got the minutes correct, primary was on that.
Parks and Rec.
Park and Rec.
And F and B,
Yep.
second.
Can be second.
Let me get it backwards, thank you.
All right. So let's set the agenda.
Seth, I
Yes.
have one quick question about the agenda. If indeed we've noted Genevieve's to speak, and we've noted representatives from Federal Realty, and we're saying that Jeremy's gonna speak on behalf, should we mention Jeremy in the agenda as well?
Well, I'm working on a thing. Jeremy probably will be introduced in the beginning, and then he will introduce the other folks, because he deals with them all the time. And so I'll have him introduce the other folks as well.
Well, just
And-
because he
and
may be
he'll-
updating too, so that's the reason why I just thought, should we mention Jeremy? That's all.
Put Jeremy's name.
Sure,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
And he's gonna be the one who's gonna give a quick update on Palmer's.
Right.
So maybe you could please note that.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
And then Lori do Pear Tree Point, is that right? Just
Well,
making
why don't we
sure.
call it just?
I got an email from her, so I just wanna make sure.
As opposed to Pear Tree, because why don't we just talk about, just put down the beaches, because, you know, part of that, since we're taking a $1.5 million gift, it would be good, you know, Lori can
Well,
discuss that a
I
little.
could put in like the beaches and then put 1 and 2 underneath it, and then we'll have we'll move the 1.5 up underneath
Yeah,
it.
but still, it's, again, if we're starting from the high level, and one of our things this, in this meeting is going to be an acceptance of up to $1.5 million
Right.
gift, then that sort of like fits into that first thing as opposed to limiting it to Pear Tree.
All right,
So perhaps
so we'll
update
put,
on Town Beach
I'll put
projects
this-
from the Parks and
I
Rec
love
Commission.
that, that's a perfect thing, update on town beaches
Town
from the
beach
park.
projects.
well, except that we've
Projects.
got a vote on the 1.5.
Right, and then does that?
Right,
So
but
that's a
it's-
separate,
But it's still an
That goes
update prior to
I'll
us
put it
voting.
in so there's an overall topic in there, and then they put the 2 underneath it.
I know.
Okay.
All right.
Because one's a vote and one's not.
Because
To update the town, update on
Because
town
that's really
beaches.
Yeah.
town beach, it's
That,
not.
I'll put that up as
Beach
a,
Beach projects by the
It's
commission.
town projects.
yeah.
it's a town project,
Yeah.
So that's
Mm-hmm.
first,
not quite the same.
that we're doing first.
Yeah,
And then the two
and then
projects
you've
are
got
the,
the 1.5 million.
what's the other one?
Next.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's, okay, so that's one.
And then we'll go to increasing fines for false alarms, state grant for the police department, and the increases for the generator bonding monies.
We could do the same thing.
Does that sound straight to everybody?
Question is with the
Project update.
Yeah.
Alright, so Pear Tree Point plan is not, that's just a general beach update.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And then, where's the update on the town projects?
that is.
then
That is.
that's it.
That's-
No, I got it, that's under,
That's the heading, and then underneath it, there's 2 pieces to it. One is the update on Pear Tree.
Beach projects.
And then, but it's beach projects, and underneath it is Pear Tree Point update, and then acceptance of the gift.
Right.
1.5 million, we have
Got
to
it.
put the 1.5
It's all
million
in the same
separate
umbrella.
because it's
town projects.
Yeah.
Yeah, I call them beach projects.
Town beach projects.
Which would then logically flow that maybe the first resolution we do is the acceptance of the gift. Because it
That's
would
right.
follow
That's what he just
right
said.
what I
into-
just,
yeah.
it's the way I had it, yeah, okay. All right, and then fines on the alarms, state grant for the police, and increase of generating bonding monies. Okay? Does that sound right?
That's an ambitious agenda.
No.
Depending on
Most of
what
this
they
is-
spend. I'm just saying it's an ambitious agenda, depending on how long they speak.
Yes,
that's all.
yes.
Yes, most of it.
Well, it's our last,
No, not true, but my comment was it's an ambitious agenda, you know,
It's a
for
good
what it's
agenda.
worth.
The resolutions are going to go, with the exception of the fines, the resolutions should go rather quickly. Yeah. Public Works, F&B is joining the Board of Finance meeting so Ed only needs to present once, and we'll be able to ask questions later.
I think that's great that what you
So-
guys are doing on that, by that's really great, because I can remember when we didn't used to do it that way. And a lot of extra meetings, very good.
And then PHS and F&B are having 2 joint meetings on the police and the fire fines. And then F&B will be reviewing the fiscal year 19 financials.
Go.
All within the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
No, all
in one night.
All in one night.
What's the night?
Okay, so may I have a
I'll make
motion?
a motion to accept the agenda as proposed.
Okay, and a second.
Sure, I'll second that.
All in favor?
This last one.
Is that true?
Thank you.
That's true.
Unanimous?
Opposed? It looks unanimous to me. I see no abstentions. Congratulations. There we go. I have one other piece that came to me, which I need help dealing with here. The first selectman wants to have a mission statement or a community value statement, and asking all the boards in town to contribute to it.
Thank you.
We only have 100 of your closest friends in our group, so I'm just puzzling about how to do this. Maybe
Can we start?
trying to, yes.
I want to start from the beginning. What was sent by Jamie for us to look at from another town
Yes.
was a really nice job. And somebody who has done this type of stuff for a living has a concern. Not tonight's, but at the prior Board of Ed meeting, the discussion with the superintendent, I don't mean to speak for him, was the Board of Ed is first embarking on developing their, a new strategy or revising their strategy. You can't come to a value statement unless you've done a strategic plan. And in fact, if you look at that other town, it
That's
was
the way they
a
did it
very
back when we was
comprehensive strategic plan. I can say that P&Z already has one because we have the 10-year plan of conservation. But I'm sure that Park and Rec has one, but they haven't articulated it. Definitely the Board of Finance hasn't articulated it. And the Board of Selectmen have not articulated it. And we also, F&B's been asking for a number of years for what's an overall technology plan, which includes how do we use license plate readers at the parks, as opposed, and how do we move things from one technology to another. If we're just gonna come with a value statement, Madison had a pretty good one, let's just use it and we're done.
We never got the current one that the Board of Selectmen.
They don't have it yet.
They
I
don't.
don't know whether
They,
they wanna come up with
But-
one.
Well, no, they've written one, and I've watched their meetings where they've reviewed the wording.
Yeah, but they haven't had from everybody else to have one. And so,
and they're talking about, just
let
to,
me
all
just
right, go
finish,
ahead.
because
Go ahead.
Because one thing keeps on coming to mind on this, and I spoke to somebody and they said, I can't say this because I'm gonna get into more trouble than I already am with the Treasury. But just coming up with a value statement reminds me of the emperor with no clothes. Because we'll have a value statement and no substance underneath it. And so the town is still naked because we don't have those strategic plans that are in place. So I like what Jamie wants to do. I think it's a great situation from a financial, I'd even be willing to put money behind it. But I don't want to put the cart in front of the horse that we're trying to have a value statement before each of those groups have a strategic plan and then bring it back to us because it looked like she wants the Board of Selectmen would like the RTM to approve it. I'd like to know what the strategic plans are that are underneath that created the values statement. Otherwise, I can't approve it.
Why wouldn't you have
yeah.
a value statement and then do a strategic plan and relationship? I guess
Because
I
you
read it
do
other
the
way.
strategic plan to develop the value
I
statement.
think you have the values first,
I
Yeah,
would think so too.
and
I-
then you
I-
look for ways that, see, we just were saying.
No, I'm telling you,
Bottom down, top
no,
down.
professionally, there is, if you go to a corporation, they don't come up with their values and then come up with the strategy. You come up with the strategy that then gives you those values and what's going on, and build from there. It's developing that strategy first. And that's exactly
Jack, I have
what
to
Madison
disagree.
did.
I have to disagree. You and I both been in big places, and I'll just take Xerox as an example. The vision was what set the tone for what was developed in all the divisions.
But a vision is different than a value statement. Vision we have. You take Madison's, it works. Seriously, take
With
Madison's, it
apologies.
works.
Frank,
There's no easy answer to this, but it's sort of like Moses coming down with the Ten Commandments.
Wow.
And people have been arguing with it.
I want that in the minutes.
But we've been arguing about
well, Madison and Moses going full
those
board.
very simple statements for 3,000 years, 4,000 years, as opposed to what Jack is referring to is a sort of this bottom up, where either you have the individual units to say this is what we working on that, and then that organic thing comes up, rather than from the top down. Because when you have it from the top down, and we get snookered into writing the values for this town, we're gonna get all messed up. It's another way, led by the selectmen, or led by the ethics committee, or led by to bring the thing up, bottom up.
Yeah.
And so there are two theories about how this ought to be done.
Yeah.
I happen to, with the record show, I happen to agree with Jack.
Oh,
Doesn't matter.
Wait a
I don't know.
so I owe you 2 drinks now.
Moses.
Then I have to tell you a joke about that later, but I can't do it.
Yeah, later, all right. So, my friends and neighbors, I was on the distribution along with all the board chairs and everything else to come forward from your group with a contribution. And so I guess what I would do is say that we want to wait, I don't know where this whole body sits here, but we want to wait until we understand what the other boards are going to produce, because we are not executive in our tone. We sort of, once, using Jack's analogy, if I can, once the boards, et cetera, develop where they think they want to go, I guess, then we could step in and provide a
I don't have the
value.
thing in front of me, but there was a reference to Weston.
Well,
No, Madison and a
Madison.
bunch of them were sent out.
I'm sorry,
And
Madison.
a bunch of them were
If
sent
you
out.
go then to the Madison,
California.
I didn't get.
if you go to the Madison website and you look at that material, it's like 40 pages long. And there's a little history of it that they all worked on it collaboratively for 6 months or more
Oh, yeah.
to bring the thing together. That one, the quick answer is, oh gosh, we can cut and paste that, because it's all good material, but it doesn't reflect at the very end. So it's really, there's so many commissions that the selectmen will appoint, and the Harbor Commission, Beautification Commission.
Well, yeah, then you've got
I
that.
think
You
the
gotta think
point
about
of
that.
values thing, and go about it the right way. Just let them go about it the right way, rather than throw it over the backyard fence to us.
All right, so I would send a note back to the first selectman to say, the Rules Committee looked at this, and we think our role is to step in later on after the different boards and commissions have developed their statements to to provide a commentary on community values based upon what surfaces. Does that sound?
Yeah.
They appointed a special commission on revising the charter a while ago.
Yeah.
Done that every once in a while.
I remember
And that group of people did good work, just happened to be voted down. But nonetheless, that is kind of the way that these things might be developed in a corporate, following a corporate model.
And ultimately, even though it was voted down, to a little
Yeah.
additional history,
And there's that.
there was a lot of things under the time of Karen and Harry and myself. We took a lot of the good ideas that were in that charter commission that was voted down and started to change some of the ordinances to reflect some of those things. So it wasn't, they did do a really good job in what they did, and we were able to move some of those things forward, so it wasn't lost. But again, organic coming up to the
Alright.
top.
From a
Does that sound-
timetable, hopefully, we're gonna do some marketing when these 3 projects are done, because at least on the surface, Darien is going to change, and our perception is that we're going to have a marketing advantage as a town with these 3 redevelopment projects. And the value statement will get boiled down to a marketing statement to differentiate Darien from the other Fairfield County communities. And that's what these redevelopments are hopefully gonna do.
Yeah.
It's allow us to separate ourselves from the New Canaans and the Greenwiches and the Westports. In
Then we
terms,
can't use Madison statement.
in terms of a framework for the town, just what it looks like.
And in reading the Madison, you know, they had an economic development part there. They had a housing section there, which, you know, Old Town Homes and some of the others reflect, and the new developments will be reflecting hopefully a little more diversity within the community. And so there's a lot of things that are gonna be transpiring that is really going to be where we are and who we are going forward over the next 10 years, because that's what I think, it's the next 5 to 10 year vision of what we're trying to do. But at the Board of Ed, it was interesting, Mr. Burke mentioned something, and it came through with something else. When we're doing this, it's almost as important to understand not only what words you use, but what words you don't use. So when at the Board of Ed, when they were talking about, you know, good citizenry, it was very, actually, I went at the end and said, are we talking about a US citizen? Because don't we have children in our schools who are children of expats or immigrants here? Don't we have expats living in town or parents that aren't yet a US citizen? And don't we have many people who have worked overseas? I mean, I know when I worked at Chase in my professional career, I was in a global bank, which many of us work in a global environment. So the word was to become a global citizen, because it more defines what Darien is. We really are a little global community.
I just have one question
Yeah,
for
Harry.
people to think about. Next year, I will have lived in Darien like 30 years, and I tend to think of values as enduring things that shouldn't change decade to decade. Just something to think about. Would it be the same? And if the whereas clause of the charter said ABC, I would think that could easily be part of the values statement, even though it was voted down. But just something to think about in terms of, because I think of values as it should be not that much different over the years. But
I think
how long is it?
I think I understand what I'm supposed to do, so I will get
Stir the
something
pot.
out. And,
Yeah.
so I will proceed accordingly.
It makes you feel like the Board of Ed isn't going back with anything right now.
No, I mean.
No, I wasn't in any rush,
Yeah.
I
You were
just
at
wanted
that meeting,
Yeah, no, I
right?
understand,
And so
some input.
they're having some difficulty here because,
And they were asking for feedback by October 31st. weren't
right,
they?
which,
Yeah.
which
So-
really, I mean, with no disrespect, because I know this is personal, but we have some boards that are changing their membership. And I would want
That's
some,
okay.
and that's okay, and I'd like them to have, the new members to have some input into what this new thing is. You know, because they're going to have to live with it, so a little bit of the former and a little bit of the new is, I think, a much stronger approach.
Mhm.
Yeah, and those people aren't gonna go far.
And with that being said, I would accept a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion
So
to
moved.
adjourn.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor,
Should I go to
please
the-
rise.
Should I go to the-
All right,